Welcome to Fertility Village. This is your weekly live talk show where community and support come together. With rotating hosts, expert guests, and meaningful conversations, we're here to guide you through the highs and the lows of infertility. Whether you're searching for answers, seeking advice, or just looking for a special place to belong, Fertility Village is your space to connect, learn, and grow. Because it really does take a village, and we are here for you every step of the way. Thanks for joining. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fertility Village Live. I'm Sarah, and tonight Kaylee's off. We have the lovely Tanya joining me as a co-host tonight. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, everyone.
We are so excited to welcome Lisa. She is a past fertility warrior herself and has a lot to share on this week's topic. It's a serious one, something that a lot of people have felt, and we're talking fertility burnout. It is no joke. Infertility, as we all know, is both physically and mentally exhausting, and there comes a point in time when we just have to try and figure out what's next. It's not an easy decision by any means, but sometimes there's just that back of our brain that's telling us, what do we do now? So thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with Oasis and Fertility Village and why you wanted to get involved?
Well, I'm Lisa, so founder of Family Redefined, which is a program I created when I ended my fertility journey without a baby. So I got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. So I guess my fertility burnout won. And I realized that there really wasn't a lot of support out there for women that are experiencing that. And so I wanted to fill that gap. And I got involved with Oasis when they invited me to be on their podcast. And they told me about the support programs that they run and asked me if I'd be a conversation starter, which I loved the idea of this. I wish that I knew about Oasis when I was going through fertility treatment. I absolutely love being a conversation starter and supporting these women who are still on their journey and just being there for them where they're at and being someone that understands all the different pieces of it. I'm so ecstatic when one of my members is pregnant. Like there's, no grief there for me anymore. And I was even more excited to get the invitation to join Fertility Village to share my story. That's often one that's overlooked. And that's, what happens when a woman ends their fertility journey without a baby. So my hope is to help reduce the stigma and the shame that often comes with that decision, remind people that there is still so much hope and joy and meaning ahead, even if their path looks a little different than they imagined.
Love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. We'll dive right in with our very first official question. So how did you recognize that you were experiencing fertility burnout? Because I know when we're in the deep of it, our hormones are taking over and our heart is taking over. And it's sometimes hard to kind of think with our heads, I think.
Yeah, I guess for me, it honestly really snuck up on me. I think at first I just thought I was kind of going through a bit of a tough stretch and, I could power through. And eventually I realized that I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was so emotionally drained. I was constantly feeling anxious and worried. I couldn't think about anything else other than getting pregnant. And there was just appointments and symptoms, like the symptoms of pregnancy and the symptoms of your period, they couldn't be more similar. Yeah. And I felt like everything else in my life was on hold. Nothing else mattered. This was it. And, I think when I realized wait a minute, I'm not living my life to its fullest.
Yes, I feel that. I was 13 years in when I started to have those feelings and trying to look to the other side of it. It feels almost hopeless. You feel lost. It's just something that's consumed you. So what do you do when that's not focused on? Tanya, I'll let you take our next question.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because it must have been so hard to make that decision and to deal with the grief of that moment. So how do you cope with the grief of those unmet expectations?
I learned to let myself feel the feelings. I had spent so long like compartmentalizing and like stuffing my feelings or hiding. Like I go off and hide in a bathroom and cry. And all of a sudden I was like, what are you doing? So I'm very honest. Like, oh, I'm like, I feel a little bit of sadness. And I've really worked hard on accepting that that is just part of who I am now. It's not something that's ever going to go away. It's certainly for the most part, like feels much less heavy. It's just, kind of, it's so similar to the grief of losing someone, right? It's like they always say, right? Like you never stop missing them. You just kind of grow around it. And so I feel like I've just really learned to grow around that and really embrace my childless grief and live very honestly about those feelings. I'm always like the women I'm supporting, whether it's at the Oasis Fertility Support Group or within the childless, not by choice world that I support as well. I'm always saying to women, like, feel your feelings, feel the feelings, all of the feelings. Like stuffing them is the worst thing that you can do. It was the worst thing I could do for myself.
Yeah, that was me. I, again, faced that fertility burnout at about the 13-year mark, and I went to therapy. I went and was looking for help to help me get out of those feelings because I just really didn't know how to proceed with life. I didn't know how to cope with the sense of grief and loss of something that I never had, right? Like I never had it, but it's that grief of the life you imagined for yourself, right? And it's really, really hard to let that go because we talk about it in like the earlier stages of infertility. You have the conversations with your partner, like finances and politics and religion and all those things, but you never really discuss, no one ever thinks, let's discuss what happens if we're infertile. Like that's not a thing, right? So like discussing that, and we'll talk about partner relationships a little bit later, but yeah, that's really, really hard, hard to come to terms with.
Well, and as you said that too, I also went to therapy, so I highly recommend that. And I think the other thing too is that like looking for that community, right? Like there's so many community places like Oasis and like just so many different places that really do offer that support no matter where you are on that stage, and it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was there like a specific moment that you realized you couldn't keep going or like a red flag or anything like that?
Yeah. So I definitely started feeling very disconnected from myself and my life and my relationship. And I felt like I was just grieving month after month after month, and I lost my spark. And like I said, I cried a lot and isolated myself. Started dreading things I used to enjoy. My mental health was not good. But I would say that the specific moment was after our second failed IVF cycle. I initially was like, okay, we're going to do an egg donor. Let's move ahead. It was actually my husband that said to me, like, let's think about this for a minute. Like, I'm not having to go through all of these intrusive tests and appointments and all these things that you're doing. And if you want to keep going, I'll support you. I just like, can you really take any more? That was the moment for me, was like for him to say that to me. I was like, okay, like I really need to think about this. Can I really take any more? And that was that moment that like, I wanted to start living my life again because I felt like I was stuck and just living. It was almost like Groundhog Day, right? Like every single day you get up and it's the same thing every day.
Every day, all consuming. I absolutely feel that. I understand that feeling so bad. And it's interesting to see that the partners are always seem to be that lovely, like level head, bringing us back to earth. So grateful.
We love an aware king that helps us into that awareness ourselves.
Eternally grateful to him. And, even at the very beginning of our journey, he said to me, I don't care if it's just you and me in this life. Like I'm good. And if I ever tried to say it was a me issue, because I was told I had low egg reserves, everything, all of his tests came back normal. Oh no, he wouldn't accept that. That was a no-go.
And I feel that too. It was always like, we take so much of infertility on ourselves when it's really not. It's a 50-50 thing a lot of the time. And for my partner and myself, we never really got full answers, but I figured like, I can't carry, things aren't working. We've had all these losses and this isn't working. And you just take so much on it yourself. And I'm forever grateful also to my partner for being that level head and saying, no, I'm content if it's just us, and I'll do whatever you want and lead the way. But here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm always appreciative for him. That's for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, how did you manage the pressure? Because I imagine you guys made that decision together. You had his support, but there's got to be pressure from outside, the doctors, your family, society. Did you feel the pressure, and how did you manage it and respond to it?
I think I was very lucky in the sense that my mom was almost as relieved as I was that I had decided to stop. She really saw me losing myself, and she couldn't do anything, like she felt so powerless. And I would say my mother-in-law was also extremely supportive. We did have some people in our lives that maybe made some inconsiderate comments, especially near the beginning, like, well, you don't have kids, you don't understand. That was a really tough one for us to hear at the beginning. And we just started speaking up. And being like, that's actually a really hurtful comment. Like, let's just step back from that for a minute. Please don't use that one.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think too, like with the doctors, like I remember having that phone call with the doctor after the second failed IVF cycle. And, she's telling me that, I could do it again, but she doesn't believe that the result is going to be any different. And, and they just dive right into like egg donor, and like it's just so that I think and I think that that's what kind of led me to kind of just jump right into the next thing. So again, I think it was just honesty, not listening, like just I've worked in children's mental health for almost 14 years. So I've worked with parents and kids like my entire career. And I often would get parents who say, well, do you have kids? And that question used to really bug me. Whereas now I would just be like, well, we tried and it, wasn't in the cards. And I've been working with kids for because even before this so I feel like I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but I just, yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to get around those conversations. I'm a teacher. My background was teaching, I should say. And I got those questions from my students all the time. Why don't you have children? Like, do you want children? You're a teacher. Of course you want children. Where are your children? Right. And they're so innocent. They don't understand. And I was always trying to be pretty honest with them. Like sometimes it's just not in the cards for some people. Yeah. All my students like my children, right? Like having that conversation with them. And then again, I love that you said that you started being honest with people and telling them like that hurts, because we did that too. It was very much, well, I'll be your surrogate, like very nonchalant, or why don't you just adopt? Like those are easy decisions and not like mentally draining and exhausting to even consider those things, let alone have people come from the outside and just like pretend like it's no big deal. Like it's just an easy next decision, an easy next step. But it does a lot of pressure, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think honesty was definitely key. And I'm glad you brought up the just adopt. And it's just it's not a guarantee either. I'm sure you can, speak more to that. But I just, people, my hope is that the more that we have these conversations, are more open about our journeys, that people will be more aware of what they say and how that can impact other people. I also hated the like, well, you can have my kids. Well, no, you're not going to give me your children. Let's be honest. You're not going to give me your children. So like, that's not funny. It's not funny.
It's not funny. We had that too, right? And it's, again, through the the journey of it, and it was many years, the number of people that said that, and once we were through the journey, we're like, oh, well, we don't talk to them much anymore. That's too bad, right? Mm-hmm. And you just hope that like maybe they learn something, and then that your close-knit support group is really good at not saying those comments and listening to and hearing what you're saying, and just listening to again, the hurt of it. And so I had one friend who used to say, like, I hope I'm not asking a bad question. I'm hoping I'm not saying something stupid. But it was really important for her to understand so that she didn't say those things to the next person as well. So she was always really grateful for that open and honest, like, conversation. So,
yeah, and I love that. I have friends like that too.
Yeah, it's great. We're going to move into that relationship bit. How did that burnout affect your relationship with your partner? Because again, you said he was pretty much the level head going into it, and you know, you started the conversation, but how did that roll out over the burnout leading up to it and then afterwards?
I mean, I think this kind of journey definitely tests a relationship for sure. We definitely grieved differently. And so, there were some tough moments. I think he kept his grief from me a lot because I think it was part of his way of protecting me. And I also really feel like it strengthened our relationship in many, many ways and brought us a lot closer together. Like you said, right? Like he was my rock. He was my level head. When I couldn't even, see any light at the end of the tunnel. If I could, like, I couldn't, because I think I got a little bit stuck afterwards. He was always there with a little joke or just some way to like bring that little bit of spark back bit by bit. So I think we were very, very lucky in the sense that we remained very, very close and very tight. It didn't have a huge impact on our relationship. And I know that that's not always the case. And maybe that's because, we were a bit older when we met. And so, we had a lot of those really honest, brutal conversations. I don't know, but we just rode the waves together.
I love that. I'm going to go off script and just add like a secondary question, because you talked about going to therapy. Did you and your partner ever do therapy together, or did he do any on his own?
No, we never went together. He did not do any on his own. But he has a very close relationship with his mom. And so I know that like he has some good friends as well. So I know that he like leaned on different people in different areas of his life. And he would talk to me more openly than I would to him at the beginning. I don't know why that is. Like he would say to me like, oh, I found it hard to see so-and-so with their baby today. And I but I think that allowed me to realize that like, he's okay to hold this with me. I need to let him hold this with me. I don't have to do this on my own.
They handle things differently than us. That's for sure. So I had to ask and see.
Yeah. I mean, I think if he wasn't opposed to it, and I think if it was having an impact on him, I think though for him, he had kind of come to that place before I did. And so I think he was just further along in his grieving when we finally decided to stop. But I think he needed me to be more ready to stop, right? Without it being like his choice. I think, he wanted us both to be on the same page.
I love that.
How did your identity shift as you moved from someone who was trying to conceive and in this fertility journey or slog or whatever word you want to use to describe it, to moving to that life after?
Oh, like I would say my identity has changed completely because, I remember being a little girl. I always imagined being a mom. Always, always, always. When I was young and in high school, like my friends would all be like, "Oh, Lisa's going to have a baby first." Like that was always like me. And so when I suddenly realized like, okay, that's not in the cards for me, I think I kind of lost myself for a bit. And then I started to reconnect with parts of me that existed outside of motherhood. I love being an aunt. I have 7 nieces and 1 nephew, and we just love pouring all of the love that we would have had for our own children into them. And then we get to give them back, which is
I remember that. I love that too.
I started to look for the pros, because there are some, right? Like it's not all horrible. And I also started to accept that like I am still whole and I am still worthy and I am still me, even though this dream that I've had for most of my life wasn't one that's going to come true.
Mm-hmm. And that must have been really difficult too, as well, to come to that. But yeah, I love that you talk about your nieces and your nephew, because I think we were lucky enough to build some really good relationships with our nieces and nephews and our friends' children, and to have those special bonds with them. Again, before we hit our fertility burnout, and again, our story is we went the adoption route instead, but not an easy decision. It was something that we had to really like consider because we weren't sure what was going to happen. There's no guarantees there as well. And what heartache are we willing to put ourselves through on that side as well? But yeah, that's really special that you have those, and again, you get to give them back, and then you can sleep well at night. It was so great.
I can go off script just a second. I had just a thought, a question. What did you do with all of the time that you got back into your life that you weren't dedicating to fertility treatments anymore? Did you start a new hobby?
We went on vacations. We went on like last minute, like weekend getaways. We like to just go on like random drives, and my husband will be like, right or left? Like just like we did so many more spontaneous things. And yeah, that was a huge piece of our healing. I'm glad that you asked that question. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I similarly, for me, I found a lot of my giving back through Oasis, and supporting people on their journey and sharing my knowledge of that, and subsequently now sharing my knowledge of the adoption process for those who really don't know like what they're doing, if there's next steps, and they're considering stopping fertility treatment, and to understand all the options that are out there to them. I found that really helped to like rebuild my sense of self, and heal me. After, what did you, other than like the spontaneity, how did you rebuild that sense of self? Like,
well, and I think, and so I touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but I did get some therapy. I really leaned into self-care and setting boundaries, learning to say no, even when it felt uncomfortable. And I was worried because I'm a people pleaser. I don't like, so saying no for me can be really challenging. And I had to, baby showers were not something I was going to. I do now, but for a while it was like, nope, that's, I can't, that's not something I can manage right now. I did actually take a chunk of time off work as well to just, find myself again, I guess, just change my focus. And I started leaning into like finding accounts online and like trying to connect with other women who were sort of, further ahead in their journey than me, to I guess get some wisdom. And then when I really stopped and thought about it, I was like, well, I want to help. I want to help women like me too. And so then I started thinking about, how I can do that, and joined a coaching program, and, started, posting my story online, and talking more openly about what I had experienced. And that in itself was so, so healing. And, like so satisfying to just like, put it out there to people. And then I was just blown away with the reactions that I was getting from people. And so that was a huge piece for me.
Did you, at the beginning of your journey, like many of us, do you kind of keep quiet about it? And then it took time before you started talking to people about the fertility treatment. And then subsequently, like, was that a slow build, or was it just kind of like where you were open from the beginning, or how did that like play out for you?
I was open with some people, like, the people that you kind of have to be, like my boss. I think there was a couple of colleagues that I was open with. Like even I have like a group of friends that I would say are like my best friends, but even with them, I was more open with one who is also childless, not by choice, than I was with the others. So I would say it was slow. I think I started with people that I was really close to and I trusted, and I built from there. Like even to the like now I find myself like, even with my mom being like, do you remember when you said this to me? And then she's appalled and we through it. I'm not holding any but yeah, it was little by little. And I think we have to be patient with ourselves because it's very, you have to be so vulnerable, and that's really scary, especially after being so vulnerable in such an intrusive time in your life. Like fertility treatment, well, is one of the most intrusive things you could ever experience. And so then I think there's this tendency for us to just put on our big girl panties and suck it up. But yeah. And I think that we need to start telling women that it's okay. You don't have to suck it up.
Yeah, you don't have to suck it up. That's one of Erin's favorite things as well. When you talked about not going to the baby showers and things like that, for so long, I felt I had to suck it up. I had to be there for my friends, and I wanted to be, but yeah, for mental health side, it's not always the best thing you can do. And again, anytime through life, if something's not good for you, don't do it.
Yeah. And there's ways for you to be there for them without, having to put your own heart on the line to do it. Right. So
absolutely.
I had to start learning that. Mm-hmm.
Sarah, bear with me because I'm going to just jump ahead based on the answer there. But you talked a little bit about this, who you found support from in those moments, but were you able to find any other support? And really, what was the support that was missing? What were you searching for that you couldn't find?
I couldn't find someone that would, I mean, I have found them now, of course, but at the time, I think what I wanted was for my clinic to be like, okay, so you don't want to move on to any next steps. You're deciding to end your treatment. Here are some supports that we would recommend for you, to help you navigate this. That's what I wanted. I feel like every woman who is in my position that has decided, I'm Sarah, I'm sure you can relate, that has decided to end their journey feels dumped by their fertility clinic. Like, oh, you're not in the baby making business anymore. Have a nice life. That's what I want. That is what I was missing.
Right? You kind of want that your clinic, as like the professionals, as the doctors, to really, like, they make you do a lot of counseling before you do. If you were to do an egg donor, you needed to do certain counseling and all those things. So you really wish they would give you the counseling for all your options, right? And here's the support. I found in general, like whether you're going through a miscarriage or egg donor or sperm donor or whatever the step is to you, there was never enough support when I, especially early in my journey, but and again, until I found Oasis. But you really want them to lay it out for you. You want that honesty, and you just like, yeah, it was the comment, okay, well, let us know. Come back when you're ready.
Yes.
Assuming that I would be back with my next one.
We could probably offer you a discount.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Right? Why can I have a discount the first time?
Why is it taking this for you to give me a discount? Like,
I was, and even like while you're in, like even after a failed like treatment, like there is nothing, right? Like it's just like, let's get on to the next protocol, let's get on to the next treatment. but like I think there's some room for improvement there. And in their defense, I don't think that there's enough training or even knowledge that's being, provided to them as professionals about that. They are in the baby making business, right? Like it is a for-profit, business.
And I feel like so much of the time too, and I guess because our journey was long at the beginning, I was like, go, 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 right? I have to keep going forward as fast as possible because I want that baby yesterday. Yeah. However, it would be good as, again, those professionals, those doctors, those counselors could say, okay, let's just take a break for a minute, like force breaks on those patients so that they can take a minute and breathe and really consider options and consider their mental health and consider their physical health, right? I love the patient care that's out there now. It's definitely much improved since I was a fertility patient myself. But yeah, I would definitely love that support in, like, again, knowing all the options for sure. That's just me though. So I love that you pointed that out because it's a really good for people to know. That's for sure. Were any of your friendships or family relationships changed as a result of your treatment? You talk about that a little bit at the beginning and how your mother and mother-in-law were really supportive, but was there any that just shifted when you made your decision to stop trying?
I think that some of our relationships have definitely shifted, and some of them have gotten a lot stronger. People don't understand. And like I said earlier, like the hurtful comments are made and often without meaning to be hurtful. And I think that we learned who we could count on and who we could sort of be more open and honest with, and who we maybe needed to have just a few more walls up just to protect ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable, right? That some of your relationships are going to shift and change. And that's hard because you're already like grieving the loss of something. And so then the idea of having to grieve loss of relationship is difficult. I guess I learned that I wanted to, like, my heart was already hurting. I didn't need to cause it any other hurt. And sometimes a relationship can change. It doesn't mean that it's not a good relationship, or it's not, maybe it just looks a little different.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel any of those friendships, and it kind of goes back a little bit, did any of those people really pressure you to keep going or ask more questions about moving forward in a different decision? Did you ever feel that pressure?
I still get the question of why, like, would you ever adopt? Like, why aren't you, considering adoption? It's, and so I basically, I'll say, I know that this is coming from a lovely place. Like, obviously that I want to be a parent, or I wanted to be a parent, and you're trying to help me problem solve. I'm not looking for problem solving at this point. No, we did talk about adoption, and we have our reasons why we didn't, move forward with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a personal decision, right? And you just want to, let people know that. Yeah. It's something heavy to consider. It's something heavy to consider. It's not an easy decision.
No, but it's just as intrusive, and it's not a guarantee. And, I just couldn't have imagined going through it and then something not having worked out. I just, I was.
When my husband and I just started to discuss it, we actually went through multiple kind of like stops in our journey where we took a break from fertility treatment and looked down the adoption path. And originally, it's a start where you go to your local CAS and you do an orientation. And it's that step in itself, going to an orientation for adoption, was quite scary for us. Because again, you're not really sure if you're in that place yet. And then you get there and they're talking about a lot of heartbreak potentially for you as a prospective parent, because they're about reunification with their biological parents and reuniting families, which is amazing if that's a possibility. But right off the top, they're like, oh, you're going to get hurt again. Like, how much can your heart take? And so that scared us a little bit off from it. And then again, it just kept coming back for us. But again, it definitely wasn't like a linear, easy decision to make. And when we did decide to, again, stop fertility treatment completely, and then subsequently it took time because we again thought maybe, okay, childless not by choice. We're quite happy in our relationship. We love one another. We love to travel, all the things, like we had plans. And then again, it came up, therapy, yay, therapy. No, I think we need to relook into this. And again, I always say the stars kind of aligned in our support systems. Again, through Oasis, through all these things that made it possible for us to like open our hearts a little bit. But we were so guarded. It was so difficult. We were so guarded, and we really weren't sure. And we also set limits for ourselves. Like we were like, this is going to be the limit. And if this doesn't, this is the last of it. Like the max our hearts can take now. And we had to do that during fertility treatment as well. We had to discuss, but it's again, really difficult to do when you're in it and your head isn't necessarily.
13 years, that's a long time.
It was. It was a long time, but yeah, for sure. It's the transitions can be tricky. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Sarah, I have completely lost where we were in our plan.
Okay, I got you. All right, so we're talking more. We should talk about healing now. Let's go on the healing and moving forward and talk about the things. What does healing look like for you now? Is it ongoing? Because you said like at first you couldn't go to baby showers, but now the feeling. So like, what was that time like? And I know everyone's timeline is going to look different, but what was that timeline like for you? What did it look like for you, that healing?
So I would definitely say that healing is ongoing. I would say that even now, like some days feel like really light and full. And then there are other days that I'll still carry a little bit of ache. I would say overall, for the most part, I feel really grounded. I've found my joy again. In my marriage, in my work, with, like I said, my nieces and my nephews. We've got 2 dogs. You'll see one behind me. And then this beautiful community of women that I've been able to find. But I would say that healing is so layered, and like a timeline, it's hard for me. I don't think I could give an exact timeline. I definitely think that it took me a few months to sort of feel like I could like breathe easier. Like, because I honestly feel like the first step for me was to kind of get over the trauma of the fertility treatment, right? Like, all of the appointments, all of the meds, all of the, like, all the talking, just all the things. I had a naturopath that I worked with when I was in treatment, and she is the only one that didn't dump me when we quit. And so I would say one of the keys to my healing was to continue working with her. And she did what she would refer to as healing acupuncture with me. And like, I think still having that connection with her. And then I slowly like pulled away. And I think just not putting a lot of pressure on yourself and taking it day by day. There's so many reasons why some people might take longer than others, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was looking for a therapist a while back, a new therapist, and because again, different journeys require different therapists. That's what I learned on the way. But I was filling out a questionnaire, and I was asking me like, what do they need to know about you? And I put trauma. And I don't think that when you click the box for trauma, they're not thinking fertility treatment is a trauma. But honestly, it is. I think it is. I think
trauma is a thing.
Yeah. So I always wonder, like, they should maybe be more specific, like what kind of trauma, like another box where you can type in what that trauma was, just so they don't expect that it was a different kind of trauma. But I always have to explain to them, no, it was a long trauma. I still have PTSD some days from it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is ongoing for sure. I still every once in a while feel very triggered.
Well, and I think that, like, as I said, I work in mental health, and I think more and more women, unfortunately, are having to go into fertility treatment. And so I think a lot more clinicians and therapists are becoming much more aware of the trauma of that. And so I guess my hope, it's unfortunate, but my hope is that it's not going to be such a, like, what do you mean your trauma is from what? Like, it's going to be like right. Let's talk about that.
Right. And that was what I feel, again, same form, male or female therapist are you looking for? And I clicked female just because I'm like, I can't explain this to a man. No offense to our men, our rocks, our wonderful level heads that keep us grounded. But I would not want to explain all the procedures to a male therapist who hasn't necessarily been through it, or his partner hasn't been through it, or all those things. So
no,
doesn't have the right equipment for what it is that you have physically gone through.
Well, it's true, right? Like, I've experienced enough of that.
No need the secondary trauma.
No.
So what advice would you give somebody who's on that verge, who's on that precipice of burnout?
Take a pause, breathe. Don't make any big decisions right away. Listen to your body, your mind, your heart. Set those boundaries, protect your peace, and give yourself permission to say, this is too much. Give yourself permission to consider all the options, and quitting needs to be an option that you consider. And, I've had a lot of women that are like still in the fertility sort of path, but then they start to follow some childless not by choice profiles or accounts. And I think that can give you hope, at least in the sense that, if I do decide that I'm done and I'm not going to, move forward with anything else, you can see other women, other people living a life that's full of joy and happiness and all of those things that in the moment you can't see that. Like, you feel like if you give up on this dream, your life is going to be sad and miserable and lonely and isolating. And so, yeah, I think that would make a huge difference.
Because that's the headspace you're in at the time, right? That beginning of grief, that sadness. I remember listening to your podcast episode and thinking like, oh my gosh, listen to this great advice she gives. And you spoke so eloquently about your journey and your path and those joys that you found after. And I thought, oh gosh, so inspiring. So I'm always telling people to listen to the Oasis Fertility Podcast because of all of this journeys and all of the stories, because it does give people hope no matter what their outcome is, whatever. And I hate the meant to be thing. I never really loved that for a really long time.
Everything happens for a reason. Oh, great. So what?
Right. Yeah. Why am I suffering? Like all those things, like what did you do in a past life that made this happen for you? Like, no. Right. So I always tell people, listen to all the Oasis fertility podcast episodes, because each journey is so unique and each outcome is so different, but everyone on it has brought so much hope. It's just, yeah, it's great. Again, I remember listening to your episode and thinking like, oh my gosh, such good advice. And when you said also about the breaks, that's part of the reason our journey was 13 years of fertility and 1 on the adoption train, but because we had to take those breaks for ourselves. And it's hard when you're in it to take it, but it is really good for perspective.
Yeah, I took a break in the middle of my fertility journey too, and then jumped back on the train for a little bit. But I think breaks are so key.
Absolutely. I completely agree. You talked a little bit about, or we touched a little bit about those triggers, and a world, again, especially focused on the pregnancy and parenting. And again, in what you do for Oasis and all those things, how do you manage those triggers now? Like, is there any times that you feel like you need to step back or take a break, things like that?
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I work in mental health. And so I became, it's called dialectical behavior therapy. Not everybody knows what that is. I'm not going to get into it all. If you're curious, you can Google it. But basically, there's a lot of skills that come along with that therapy. And I became a trained skills facilitator, and I had to learn these skills. And so many of them were very key in my sort of healing process. And even now, when I find myself triggered, and it's a lot of, these are the skills that I teach the women that I support as well. One of them is called like coping ahead. And it's about like basically imagining yourself in the situation that maybe is creating some anxiety for you. So for example, like a baby shower, right? And so you imagine yourself managing through the baby shower, and maybe you've got you bring like a fidget toy, or like, something you have a plan for, what am I going to do when it becomes too overwhelming? And then you just practice managing it successfully in your mind. So it's like little things like that. I limit my exposure when I need to. Like I said, if I come into a conversation, everyone's talking about their kids. Like it's a bunch of moms and they're all talking about my kids. I'll excuse myself sometimes because I'm like, I can't do it today. And again, the honesty with my support system, and reminding myself that I'm allowed to feel whatever is coming up for me. I don't need to stuff any of my feelings. And that I can love my life and feel sadness about pieces of my life at the same time. And that was a really key concept for me. And that is a dialectical, the idea that you can feel two opposite things at the same time.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what has surprised you the most about life after, I kind of don't love that language, but like life after fertility treatments, or this new phase of your life?
Yes. How beautiful it can still be. Like if someone had told me that I would feel this content, I wouldn't have believed them. I would have laughed in their face. I was like, there's no way. But I feel very content, and I laugh more. I feel lighter. And I've created a life that feels very meaningful and full in so many ways that I would have never imagined.
I love that. I feel that too. I had to find, again, my background was teaching for a really long time, and I don't do that anymore because, again, I had to find my calling elsewhere, and in that space where you feel really fulfilled with your life. So I love that. And again, you're so eloquent in your words. And again, hopefully after this, we will be able to link to all your things, Lisa, so people will need to find you. This will be up later on our YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook, and we'll link, and our podcast page. That's where I was going, our podcast page. So everyone can listen to this and find you, but we'll talk more about that later. So again, in what you do now in the community, I feel like you're a very big advocate, which we always appreciate as well. How can we create more inclusive spaces for people who are stopping fertility treatment?
So, like I said, I think fertility clinics themselves, and I'm very lucky. I was approached by the Canadian Fertility and Androgyny Society to speak at the conference this year in September in Quebec City.
I can't wait to see you there.
Are you going to be there?
We will be there. Oasis will be there. We're so excited.
They asked me to do a presentation for the nursing staff around how to support women who they think might be, or certainly experiencing fertility burnout, and might be, nearing the end and not realize it. So they asked me, like, what kind of language should we use? What language should we try to stay clear of? What are some of the like red flags that we might see in a patient? And, how can we talk to them? How can we gently, suggest to a woman who's maybe on her like 20th cycle of IVF, that, it's okay to stop. So I'm so excited to do that. And I'm, created a bit of a companion guide that I'm going to provide to the fertility clinics. Yeah. So I really feel like the biggest thing, and then for inclusiveness, is for clinics to have more of a process to support women in fertility burnout who aren't quite ready to quit, and also in for those women that do decide to quit, that it's not just like, see ya, have a nice life. That there's a bit, a little bit more. And whether that's, connecting to other providers like myself, or providing it within their own clinic, I think that is a huge missing piece. I've just talked to so many women that are just kind of wandering around out there being like, I don't know how to move on. I don't know how to get out of this funk. And so, yeah. And like things like Oasis, I think like all the different kind of support groups that you guys are offering. And I know like Oasis is always expanding. And I know that like there's so many other ideas in the works, but things like, but it's true. And this fertility village, like these are all the things that make a difference and allow women like me to share my story and talk about life on the other side, so that, another woman that might be listening to this tonight is like, okay, it's okay for me to stop. It's okay for me to stop. And that doesn't mean that my life's going to suck.
Right. Yes. I feel like information is key. Information is key. Let's get it out there. Let's not make it taboo. Share it with those frontline staff. That's been a huge conversation lately at Oasis, is that the frontline staff and how they can support. And again, when I talk about frontline staff, no offense to all the amazing doctors out there that help make those babies at the clinics, but really it's the nurses, right? It's those nurses we see every single day that are drawing the blood and doing the ultrasounds and taking us into those little rooms for the bad news, right? It's really, really good. That you're focused on that, and that we can help those friends, because they do care. That we love those nurses. We love the doctors, but we love the nurses.
They aren't given the information, and they're not given the they're not allowed to do this. I think a lot of them probably don't feel great about it. I remember I had one nurse who actually said to me, like, it's okay to take a little break. She's the reason I took a break from my fertility journey. And I still remember her name. Her name was Karen. And when she left the clinic, I was heartbroken.
Right. I feel that, right? Again, we get attached to those people because, again, they're seeing us at our most vulnerable. So they know, again, they're seeing us every day. They're seeing us at our worst. Mm-hmm. And they are definitely, I feel like, the ones that could maybe get through that fog, through that push that we feel we need to go through. And if they'll tell us to take a step back, that's definitely advice I would take into consideration, versus being, pushed. Like, let's try egg donor. Let's try, here's some information you weren't expecting, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, we love those frontline staff. And I think is there any key, again, off script, sorry, Tanya, what are those red flags for nurses? We'll just touch in case there's any nurses or frontline staff at the clinics watching this. What would you tell them right now, real quick, not to blow your presentation, because I can't wait. I hope I can sit in on that one. But what would you tell them?
I think that when you start seeing kind of a blankness in their eyes, like that sense of desperation, every woman that's walking through the door of a fertility clinic is anxious, but that a huge increase in that anxiety. I would say those that's what I now can look back and see in myself. Mm-hmm. Especially that sense of desperation, huge sense of desperation, that even just thinking about it, I can go right back to that icky feeling of, I think, when we ask somebody how they are, but truly asking how you are, right? There's a different way to ask that question. How are you doing? And maybe even saying I feel like you seem like you're really struggling. Mm-hmm. I just want you to know that I'm here and you can talk to me what are you thinking? And anything is okay. Let's talk about it.
That's great advice. And I know that feeling too. I remember, and not even it was that anxiety, but also almost an aloofness too.
Yes.
I was desperate and anxious, but right?
Almost numb.
Yeah.
Numbness to it. Yep. Okay. Hi, Wanda. How's it going? Okay. Yep. You're going to poke me again. And I always had to I had really bad veins. So every time I went in, I had to drink lots of water. And then I had to tell the nurse, please check both arms, decide really hard, because I don't want to be poked 14 times for you to find this one little vial of blood for this draw. But yeah, I absolutely like understand that feeling. And I feel like it was obvious. Like maybe it wasn't to everybody. Maybe I put on a great mask, but I do feel that shift in it. So that's really, really good advice for our frontline. I love that.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we got a couple minutes left before we say goodnight. So let's look to the future. Like, if you could reframe the narrative around the idea of success in fertility journeys, what would that look like for the future?
I don't know. I feel like something. I feel like even something as simple as like, no matter how your journey ends, you are worthy and important and like deserving of a life full of joy and happiness, however that looks, and that, there are so many different ways that we can mother in this world without having a child of our own.
I love that. I always tell my support group, don't have regrets. Like, you can have sadness, right? You can feel grief,
absolutely,
but don't have regrets about it. Like, I feel like that's kind of a good sign of success, when you don't have regrets about the decisions you made and you've had the information to make those informed decisions. And again, that's partly for people who are on the journey or considering stopping their journey. Just make sure that you don't feel that regret. You might at that time, but give it time. And
yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Take that time to like make sure that you don't have regrets.
And just to add to that, I think it's normal to worry that you're going to have regrets. And that will ease. Like it will start to decrease, and you'll be able to look, because I can honestly say I do not have any regrets. I don't regret not doing an egg donor. I don't regret not looking into adoption. I have no regrets. If you had asked me the day after we decided to stop, I probably would have told you that I was worried I was going to have regrets.
Yes, absolutely. And that was me too. As I said, I stopped fertility and went into therapy on the plan that we would be childless, not by choice. And even after time, I was still feeling regret. So that was my sign to, okay, maybe let's look into adoption a little bit and see what happens and go from there. Just to say, so I wouldn't have regrets. So yeah. Again, those regrets can be very strong at first, but give it a minute. Give it a minute and see how you feel. But yeah. That brings us almost to 9 o'clock. We're almost there. I want to thank you again, Lisa, so much for all of the wisdom you brought to us tonight. Again, this episode will be on our YouTube, Facebook, and our podcast channel. We'll link to where you can find Lisa. Do you remember what episode you are at in the podcast?
Not off
by
one.
Is it season 1 though, right?
Pardon?
I'm pretty sure it's season 1 though, right?
I think so.
So go look at the podcast, go listen to Lisa's story of her whole journey, and all the wonderful questions that Aaron and Tiffany asked her. Again, her episode is so eloquent and again, joyful at the end, really inspirational, really joyful. This is a tricky conversation for people to have, but if you have any questions for any of us, always send them along. We'll reach out to Lisa and pass them on. We didn't get any tonight, but that's okay. That's okay. I don't think there's any announcements to have other than our next Oasis support groups are coming up this Monday. So please go online to sign up. You can see Lisa in person in Guelph, right? I believe. And myself virtually online. And we hope to see you there. Ask for support. We're here for you.
Don't forget the men's support group is also this month, but it's on Tuesday, not on Monday.
Yes. Thank you, Tanya. I forgot. Yes, we're very excited for our inaugural men's support group coming up this Tuesday. Again, get those men to sign up. We have Rob as the conversation starter, and he's so great. Thank you again. We'll see you all next month. Well, next week for Fertility Village. Next month, Kaylee will be back. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Lisa. We'll see you all again soon. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.